This fell off the wall last night. Feel like that's kind of a bad omen. In September of 2018, Warner Brothers and DC Entertainment launched the DC Universe, a brand new subscription service specializing in television shows and movies featuring characters found in DC Comics. The platform offers fan favorite shows and movies spanning the entire history of the company. TV shows like Batman the Animated Series or the 1975 Wonder Woman show, movies like Richard Donner's Superman, Tim Burton's Batman, and a slew of direct-to-video animated films. But not only that, DC Universe also offered its own original content as well. Live action shows like Doom Patrol, Titans, Swamp Thing, animated shows like Harley Quinn and Young Justice, each one getting a lot of good critical acclaim and all of them having dedicated fan bases that tune in every week for a new episode. And on top of all of that, DC Universe is home to one of the best online collections of comics available today. Thousands upon thousands of DC comics spanning all the way back to the 1930s, all the way up into just last year. The comics library alone was worth the price of admission. There are admittedly way too many streaming services out there right now, but for hardcore fans of DC Comics, DC Universe was a worthwhile investment. At least until this year when things started to get a little wonky. Not just with DC Universe, but with DC Comics in general. Things are not looking good here. And no, surprisingly, coronavirus is not the entire reason. Since its inception, DC Universe has always been kind of a niche thing, a subscription service specifically for hardcore fans of DC Comics. Now you may think there are a lot of those out there, and sure, people like these characters, but do they like them enough to spend $7.99 a month for a service that primarily has old shows and movies? And to be honest, they probably own those already on DVD and Blu-ray. But over the past 2 years, DC Universe has really turned itself into the destination for die-hard fans. In addition to all the old shows and movies all conveniently in one place now, DC Universe offered up new high-quality content for fans to sink their teeth into. And the fans sure did get into it. Doom Patrol and Harley Quinn are the breakout shows of DC Universe. Young Justice came back for a much-needed third season. God, that show is so good. Even Titans, which a lot of people have cooled on since its debut, still has a dedicated following. After starting life as basically nothing more than a meme thanks to Batman, there are still a lot of fans out there eagerly awaiting the third season, and that says a lot. Batman. I just want you all to know that I initially wrote Buttman in my script. I am a comedy genius. Plus, for fans of reading comics, DC Universe has become a goldmine. Almost every single comic the company has ever released from the 1930s all the way up into just last year is available on the site. From famous classics to obscure gems. Sure, it's just single issues right now, there's no trades or collected editions, but everything is pretty well curated, so you should find what you're looking for without getting too lost or confused. The comics library alone truly is worth the price of admission. It may have had a shaky start, but in no time, DC Universe became the premier destination for DC Comics fans, and it has become one of the better streaming services for a niche market. And let's be clear here, DC Universe really isn't for everyone. It's only really for big fans of DC Comics. But if you are a big fan of DC Comics, then this is the perfect streaming service for you. Or rather, it was perfect. Seemingly over the past year, Warner Media, DC's parent company, has been trying to self-sabotage their own grand experiment, turning DC Universe from the oasis for comic fans into something less and less special. Let's get the obvious out of the way first. HBO Max has really been screwing things up for DC Universe. Ever since it was hinted at there'd be another streaming service coming from Warner Media, things didn't look good for DC Universe. But maybe it could work. Maybe HBO Max could be for the casual fan of DC Comics, someone who really just watches the new movies and maybe one of the shows here and there. And DC Universe could be for the hardcore, somebody who actually reads comics, loves all the animated series, and gets a kick out of all of the direct-to-video animated movies. But in the lead up to the release of HBO Max, things became pretty clear that the future of DC Universe was not looking good. For one thing, it was announced that all future DC movies would be debuting on HBO Max. Also, shows like Doom Patrol and Harley Quinn, DC Universe originals, would also be debuting on HBO Max at the same time. And of course, not to mention the closing of Filmstruck, Warner Media's other niche streaming service that specialized in foreign, art house, and more classic films. That got shut down. A lot of those films rolled into HBO Max, so it seems pretty apparent that the same could also happen to DC Universe. Now currently, the DC content offered by both platforms is pretty up and down. At the time of this recording, HBO Max seems to have the majority of movies on their platform. They have pretty much all the live action films you would want to watch. They have most of the current DCEU films on their platform, and they have a lot of animated movies on there as well, but they don't really have a big library of DC TV shows. DC Universe, by contrast, never had any of the post-Man of Steel DC movies on their platform, but their current selection is still very anemic. They mostly have a lot of obscure movies like the Jonah Hex movie or the 1987 made-for-TV Spirit movie, which technically isn't a DC movie, but that's another video. They do have a few of the animated movies on there. They have Richard Donner's Superman on there, but they used to have The Dark Knight, the 90s Batman movies, and a whole lot of others. Now, it's all on HBO Max. Their TV selection is a lot better though. They do have a lot of live action TV shows on DC Universe, and they have all the animated shows that you love from DC. DC was always excellent at making animated series based on their characters, and DC Universe is where you can find them. Neither service has the Adam West Batman show or any of the current CW DC shows. There's really not a whole lot of overlap between the two platforms, but by putting the more popular and more recent movies onto HBO Max, it's pretty clear where Warner Media wants your attention and money to go. But then there's the matter of DC Universe's original content. Shows like Titans, Doom Patrol, Swamp Thing, Harley Quinn, Stargirl, all high quality series, and high quality series can make or break a streaming service in this day and age. And it looks like these shows, which did once make DC Universe, are now about to break it. Doom Patrol and Harley Quinn are both going to premiere on HBO Max at the same time as DC Universe. Swamp Thing is being revived by the CW after being canceled in the middle of season 1. Stargirl debuted on the CW and DC Universe at the same time, and it looks like season 2 is going to be a CW exclusive. All that leaves is Titans, but given the way things are going, I would not be surprised if Titans season 3 also debuts on HBO Max. And that's not to mention all of the original DC shows currently in development specifically for HBO Max. Shows like Green Lantern Corps, Justice League Dark, the Matt Reeves Gotham PD show. These are all shows that would have been great for DC Universe, but they're not going on DC Universe. They're going to the more high-profile platform. Really, the only thing that DC Universe still has to offer is its comic book library, which, yes, is great, but is it enough to keep the platform alive and going? Do the corporate overlords at Warner Media want to just have a comics-only streaming service under their belt? I honestly doubt it. But I think the current status of DC Universe is a lot more complicated than Warner Media just wants to sell their other streaming service. I think there's a lot more corporate BS at play here. In 2018, AT&T acquired Time Warner and all of its assets. Time Warner then changed its name to Warner Media and almost immediately began hyping up a new streaming service that would eventually become HBO Max. But AT&T also acquired a lot of debt in their acquisition of Time Warner. So to try and alleviate this problem, they began shutting down services and tried to sell off a bunch of stuff. That's why Filmstruck got shut down. That's why they tried to sell their video game division earlier this year. Hell, that's why they made DC Comics shut down Vertigo and Mad Magazine. It was a cost-cutting measure. And that's probably why DC was hit the hardest by all the layoffs that occurred at Warner Media this past Monday. Sure, they'll try to blame things like the pandemic and stuff, but if we're being honest, DC has had a target on its back since the merger between AT&T and Time Warner was complete. In the grand scheme of things, DC Comics never really made a whole lot of money from Warner Media. It was profitable, sure, but never really made any sort of significant impact on the overall corporate bottom line. And now that the company is looking to cut costs any way they can, it might be time for an insignificant division to go. That is why DC suffered such massive layoffs on Monday. A third of DC Comics editorial staff is just gone. DC Universe lost a majority of its workforce. DC Direct, the company's own collectibles line, no longer exists. It was shut down completely. And it was confirmed on Monday by anonymous insiders that DC Universe's days have been numbered since the merger was completed. But losing a streaming service, one streaming service, that's one thing. More and more, it's beginning to look like DC Comics as a whole is in big trouble. Because it seems like now more than ever, Warner Media does not care about DC Comics. I mean, why should they? They already own all of these characters and they make more money from them by putting them in movies or on t-shirts. So why even bother having a comic book division? Why not just shut it down and just make things that actually do make money? I mean, obviously they shouldn't. They'd be losing a big, valuable resource pool. Where else are they going to get new characters and new storylines to draw inspiration from? But to the corporate overlords, story and characters don't mean jack if they don't generate a significant revenue. Now, of course, I have no real hard evidence to prove that Warner Media does not care about DC Comics, but their actions over the past few months, like firing Dan DiDio out of nowhere, making them drop diamonds in order to form new distributors, and two more recent things are really showing that they don't really care about the comic book publishing side of things. For one thing, in 2 weeks, their virtual convention, DC Fandom, is set to take place. Now, sure, the majority of the marketing towards this event has been geared towards the movies and the TV shows. Which, okay, sure, fine, whatever, but comics were also supposed to be a part of this event. And now you're telling me that you laid off a majority of their staff and even shut down significant divisions of the company 2 weeks before you're about to celebrate them? That's like if 2 weeks before your birthday, your dad decided to break your legs. And second, according to comicbook.com, Warner Media is looking to hire a general manager to oversee the publishing side of things. And they're looking to hire their general manager, again, for their publishing company. They're looking to hire them from the world of esports. That is true. That is a true sentence I said. Excuse me a second.
Dear Lord, that's the loudest profanity I've ever heard.
Best case scenario, DC manages to weather this storm and comes out a little worse for wear. Worst case scenario, one of the oldest comic book publishers currently making comics today could be shut down entirely. Their characters to become fodder for cheap video games and bad movies. A world without DC Comics is a bad world for everyone. This isn't about just not getting new Batman comics every month. This is about losing a major arm of the comic book world. They may not make up as big of a portion of the market as they once did, but they're still big enough that every comic book publisher would feel it if they just disappeared. It would be like if Nintendo stopped making video games altogether. I hope the company can get through this. I hope they can continue to make new and exciting comics featuring some of the greatest fictional characters ever made. I hope they can also at least keep their classic comics in circulation and readily available. Not just Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns, but also obscure stuff like Superman Godfall, or Wonder Woman the Hecate, or any Aquaman story that's not written by Jeff Johns. If DC Universe does wind up getting shut down, I get it. I may not like it, but at least I understand. You want to shift focus away from your niche streaming service with a little bit of subscribers over to your more high-profile streaming service with a lot more subscribers. Makes sense, I understand. But I fear that DC Comics as a whole isn't much longer for this world. I hope to God I'm wrong, but all signs point to a bad future. The company shutting down and its characters existing in other forms of media till the end of time. I own plenty of Batman shirts already, but Batman is not a t-shirt. He's a comic book character and he deserves to have his stories told in comic books. All of their characters do. But what about you? Do you think it's the end for DC Comics, or at least DC Comics as we know them to be? Are you sad that DC Universe is obviously going away? And what would you do, or what do you think could possibly save the publisher? Let me know down below or anywhere on the internet. I did plan on making this week a video on DC Universe just to see where the platform is and how it relates to HBO Max, how I do think it is going to be phased out eventually, but given what happened on Monday, I kind of had to talk about DC as a whole and just how it's not looking good. It's not looking good at all. In the description below, I'll have an Amazon affiliate link to some DC Comics for you to check out and buy. Buying comics is really the best way to prove that we want DC Comics to survive. Buying toys and movies and t-shirts of these characters will really only prove to Warner Brothers that we want toys and t-shirts and movies of these characters, not necessarily comic books featuring them. So buy comics either from the affiliate link down below, or if you can venture out to a comic book store, definitely do that. And of course, don't forget that we have new videos on this channel every single Tuesday and Wednesday, with Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern being Wulff. And of course, don't forget that we have new videos on this channel every single Tuesday and Wednesday, with Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern being Wulff Den Live. So subscribe to see all of that, like this video, and share it with a friend who does not want to see DC Comics go away. Really, nobody should want to see DC Comics go away. Comic book world is not a comic book world without DC and Marvel and Dark Horse and Image and Dynamite and IDW and Boom and all of them. You lose one, you might as well not have the rest. Thank you all for watching. I will see you next time. Wash your hands, wear a mask, save DC Comics.